Welcome to Religion Unpacked. Pontius Pilate. The shocking archaeological proof. He existed. It is one of the most famous gestures in human history. A Roman governor, faced with an angry mob, calls for a basin of water. He washes his hands and declares, "I am innocent of this man's blood." With that single act, he sentences Jesus of Nazareth to death by crucifixion. His name is Pontius Pilate. For billions of Christians, he is the man who signed the death warrant of the Son of God. Every Sunday, his name is spoken in churches around the world in the Nicene Creed, crucified under Pontius Pilate. But for centuries, secular historians and skeptics had a massive problem with Pontius Pilate. Outside of the New Testament, there was almost zero physical evidence that he ever existed. No statues, no coins with his face, no official Roman records of his appointment. Many critics argued that Pilate was just a literary invention, a fictional character created by early Christians to shift the blame of the crucifixion away from the Roman Empire and onto the local population. Today, we are going to unpack the historical reality of Pontius Pilate. We will look at the stunning archaeological discoveries that silence the skeptics forever. And we will reveal the shocking truth about who he really was. Not the hesitant, peaceful judge of the Bible, but an iron-fisted, brutal tyrant who terrified even the Romans. The mystery of Pilate's existence was finally solved in 1961. An Italian archaeological team was excavating the ancient Roman theater in Caesarea Maritima, a stunning coastal city in Israel. This city was the actual headquarters of the Roman government in Judea, not Jerusalem. While clearing the ruins, the archaeologists noticed a large block of limestone being used as a step in a staircase. It had been repurposed by later builders. But when they turned the stone over, they found a Latin inscription carved into the face. Though partially damaged, the words were unmistakable. It read, Tiberium, Pontius Pilatus, Praefectus Judeae. It was a dedication stone for a temple honoring the Emperor Tiberius, built by Pontius Pilate, prefect of Judea. This was a monumental moment in biblical archaeology. In an instant, the skeptics were silenced. Here was undeniable carved-in-stone proof from the 1st century that Pontius Pilate was a real historical figure and that he held the exact title and position described in the historical records. But the discoveries didn't stop there. In 1968, archaeologists excavating the desert fortress of Herodium found a simple, cheap copper ring. It looked like thousands of other pieces of Roman jewelry, so it was put in a box and forgotten for 50 years. In 2018, researchers decided to use advanced macroscopic photography on the old artifacts. When they cleaned and photographed the copper ring, a Greek inscription suddenly became visible around a picture of a wine vessel. The inscription read, Pilato, of Pilate. Because it was a cheap copper ring, experts don't believe the governor himself wore it. Instead, it was likely an administrative stamp ring worn by one of his officials to seal documents in his name. It was another direct fingerprint of his administration. So, we know he was real. But what kind of man was he? If you only read the Gospels, you might think Pilate was a reasonable, perhaps weak politician who was bullied by the local crowds into executing Jesus. He washes his hands. He tries to release him. But the ancient historians paint a terrifyingly different picture. The Jewish philosopher Philo of Alexandria, who lived at the same time, described Pilate's administration as defined by briberies, insults, robberies, outrages, wanton injuries, executions without trial, and ceaseless and supremely grievous cruelty. The historian Flavius Josephus records several instances of Pilate's absolute ruthlessness. When Pilate needed money to build a new aqueduct for Jerusalem, he simply stole the funds from the sacred temple treasury. When thousands of people gathered in the streets to protest, Pilate didn't back down. He ordered his Roman soldiers to dress in civilian clothes, hide clubs and daggers under their cloaks, and surround the protesters. At a given signal, the soldiers attacked. Hundreds of unarmed civilians were beaten or trampled to death. Pilate crushed the rebellion with extreme prejudice. Understanding this historical context changes how we view the trial of Jesus. To the historical Pontius Pilate, executing a Jewish peasant from Galilee who claimed to be a king wasn't a moral crisis. It was a standard administrative procedure. Crucifixion was the Roman penalty for treason. If someone caused unrest during the explosive festival of Passover, Pilate's job was to eliminate the threat immediately. There was no hesitation. The washing of the hands was likely a later theological addition to emphasize Jesus' innocence rather than a historical reality. But Pilate's cruelty eventually went too far, even for the Romans. In the year 36 AD, a large group of Samaritans gathered at their sacred Mount Gerizim, following a prophet who claimed he could uncover hidden holy vessels. They were armed, but not rebelling against Rome. Pilate didn't care. He sent a detachment of heavy cavalry and armed infantry to block their route. The Roman troops slaughtered the Samaritans in the village below and executed all the leaders they captured. The Samaritan council was so outraged that they filed a formal complaint to Pilate's superior, the Roman legate of Syria, Vitellius. Vitellius decided that Pilate's violence was destabilizing the entire region. He fired Pontius Pilate on the spot and ordered him to return to Rome to stand trial before the Emperor Tiberius. Pilate packed his bags and left Judea in disgrace. But history offers one final twist. While Pilate was sailing back to Italy, Emperor Tiberius died. By the time Pilate arrived in Rome, the new emperor Caligula was in charge. What happened next? We don't know. Pontius Pilate simply vanishes from the historical record. Some legends say he was executed by Caligula. Others claim he was exiled to Gaul and committed suicide. The Ethiopian church even claims he converted to Christianity and became a saint. The ultimate fate of Pontius Pilate remains a mystery. But thanks to the sands of Caesarea Maritima and a tiny copper ring, his existence is no longer a matter of faith. It is a matter of stone, metal, and blood. He was the ruthless enforcer of an empire whose name was immortalized by the very man he ordered to die. And that is the historical evidence of Pontius Pilate, unpacked. Thank you for watching Religion Unpacked. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a new upload.